Hi, my name is Jim Gitney. I'm the CEO of Group50 Consulting and the author of Strategy Realized, the Business Hierarchy of Needs. In this episode, we're going to talk about ways that you can significantly improve your business and engage your employees to help you accomplish something we call the most important goal. And using another methodology called the business hierarchy of needs that will allow you to get everyone moving in the same direction.
And welcome to the Business Growth Architect Show. This is your host, Beate Gillette, the Growth Architect. In this show, you will learn how to grow your authority and scale your impact using strategies brought to you by the most amazing and well-known, respected experts, coaches, consultants all over the world. We are a global ranked top 10% podcast, and we can't wait to share these insights with you. And welcome. This is Beate Gillette, your host for the Business Growth Architect Show, your podcast for strategy to build your authority and scale your impact. Today with me is author, speaker, business consultant, strategist, Jim Gitney. Jim, welcome on the show.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
So for somebody who's never heard about Group 50 or has never heard about you or GASP, never read your book, tell us who you are and what do you do?
So I have a 45-year career. And during that 45 years, I've worked for companies like GE and Black & Decker, Sunbeam, Rainbird. In 2004, started Group50 Consulting. Our focus is working with middle market manufacturing and distribution companies in helping them to improve their top and bottom line, to improve their performance, and to engage their people in that improvement. In 2013, I created something called the Business Hierarchy of Needs. As your listeners might imagine, it's patterned after Maslow's hierarchy of needs. In order for a business to be successful, it has to have a core set of things it needs to do. And we've introduced into the business hierarchy of needs the idea of the most important goal. Now, your listeners might think mission, vision, values, that is what our culture is defined by. But the addition of the most important goal allows you to create an objective that everyone can work on, every stakeholder can work on, and make it measurable. And so we work with companies ranging in size from the low teens in sales to $750 million. What's interesting is that the business hierarchy of needs is applicable to any type of business, any team inside of business, and any group of people who want to accomplish something big.
So I like that you have gone in. I mean, I chuckle, because I think, what is it, 29 steps you said in the hierarchy? So this is clearly for somebody who understands that business is consistent out of numerous different strategies, different elements and pieces that all come together, and then they magically work together hand in hand, and that there's a handoff from kind of like one thing to another. Very strategic. So we talk about authority building, right? So we talk about how do you become the authority in your industry? How do you become somebody who is known for what you do? So as we're growing these businesses, I find that it is very easy to get sidetracked and to go in and say, I love this, but now I had a conversation last night with somebody who said, why don't you do X? And now it's the next morning and I'm still thinking about it. I'm going like, well, maybe I adjust my vision. Maybe I change some things around. So in your experience, because you seem to have such a clear path, right? 29 steps to get to X. What do you see happens the most with business owners as they're embarking on really getting this hierarchy figured out?
So the biggest thing is that we have a tendency to get lost in the noise. And senior leaders typically spend an hour, maybe 2 hours a month on strategy, which is a shame in and of itself. But at the end of the day, if I have a clear vision of what I want my company to be or what I want my team to accomplish in the future, and I use that as the litmus test for everything I do, a lot of the noise goes away. So to use your example, Beata, I had a conversation with somebody. I heard some new technology or some new methodology or some new approach, a new shiny object that really got my interest. And I'm going to hear that all the time. We use the most important goal as the litmus test for that. Does this new shiny object or this new idea really help me accomplish what I've set out to do? So, this is the Business Growth Architecture podcast. Let's assume that my most important goal is to double sales in the next 5 years. We can build a strategy around that. We can set the metrics we know from what to what by when. And anytime we hear about a new approach or a new technology or a new methodology, we always stand back and ask, does this really get me toward my most important goal? And if it doesn't, you don't consider it anymore.
So there's two questions that come immediately to mind. So the first question is, do you find that it is easy or difficult for business owner to understand what the most important thing is in their business?
So it's difficult at first, but it only takes about 20 or 30 minutes of conversation to get business owners to realize why the most important goal is so significant. When I grew up in my corporate career, I was taught that businesses should have 3 to 5 strategies. And what I find out as I work with clients is that oftentimes they'll have 3 to 5 strategies, but they aren't tied together. They don't all work in unison. So say I want to go out and do a new channel of distribution, or I want a new portfolio of products, or I want diversity, or I want sustainability. Oftentimes companies and leadership teams will create strategies around that. What we want to do is to get the leadership team focused on that one measurable goal and then ask, how do we apply diversity to it? How do we apply sustainability to it? How do we increase our portfolio of products? Or how do we move into new channels of distribution only focused on that goal? And what's interesting, Beata, is that strategies in and of themselves are relatively complex, no matter what size your business is. The most important goal is something that we can communicate to every stakeholder in the business. And I'm real careful about saying the word stakeholder, because in today's businesses, who are the stakeholders? The vendors, customers, owners, employees, contract workers, temporary workers, and a whole litany of people who have a stake in my success. And so we create the most important goals so that it can easily be communicated to everybody, and they can immediately start asking themselves if what they are doing is supporting the most important goal of the company.
There is a lot in there. I'm thinking about most of our listeners here in the Beehive are primarily business owners, entrepreneurs, small business owners. So I think what you're talking to is what's the most important thing is an absolutely critical question, because there is a hierarchy in business. I always say that when we talk about work-life balance, and I talk to men, I say, well, if you want the woman to be here longer than your business, wouldn't that mean that you would have to treat her better than your best client, because she needs to be lasting longer than your best client, right? So long after you've done the exit, you made the money. And that's a hierarchy, that's a priority, right? That's an importance of where I'm going. So if I now have told them this example, and now we say, okay, now let's look at the business. What is your most important priority right now? Are you making sales? No, you're not making sales. Then sales kind of needs to be a priority, because without sales, you don't have a business. Well, what do you need for sales? You need leads. Do you have leads? Well, if you don't have leads, then leads become your first priority, in the strategy. So do you have like a method or a couple questions you can share with our audience on how can they figure out what's the most important thing in their business right now that they probably need to focus on based on your experience?
So it's all dependent on the most important goal. So let's talk about smaller businesses, sub $10 million for the sake of conversation. And the owner needs to establish the most important goal. And we do a simple exercise around what we call strategic gaps and operating gaps. Operating gaps are the things, what are we doing well today or not doing well today? And what are the things we need to do in order to achieve our most important goal? That establishes the priorities. Now, let's not confuse the fact that I may run into a rough spot. So sales might be down because I lost a customer. Obviously, that's an incredibly important a priority that needs to be addressed by the business, but it needs to be addressed in reference to the most important goal. And so business owners are always going to be faced with things they need to fix right now. And what's most important is that however they fix it, it moves the business closer to its most important goal. Let me share an example with you. When we do a consulting project, we make recommendations and we can fix a very specific problem and make it less painful. But it's also possible that the recommendations we make might be counter to the company's most important goal. And so when we put together a set of recommendations for a project, we always go back to the most important goal and say, number one, does it fix my immediate need? Does it satisfy my immediate need? And do the recommendations we make help move the company toward its most important goal? So we're not talking about changing priorities. What we're talking about is making sure that as we change things, that they're all focused on the most important goal.
So we talk about the most important goal quite a bit in this episode. So what is the most important goal?
So it's probably easier to share a couple examples with you.
Go ahead, please. Yeah, I want to make this real so that the listener of the Beehive goes, now I get it. Because for most people who run a business, everything is important. So if it is the most important goal, I want to help them to understand how to get there. So go ahead, Jim.
So we do work with entrepreneurs and business owners, and we're seeing the largest transition of wealth in the history of the United States as baby boomers like myself are starting to retire. So if I'm an owner of a company and my most important goal as the owner is to spend the rest of my life on the beach drinking pina coladas, we can figure out how much it's going to cost, how much money we need to do that. Because that's the most important goal for the business, we now build business strategies to support that. But I also find in a lot of owners that we're working with that they don't really truly want to retire. They don't want to go sit on the beach and drink pina coladas for the rest of their life. What they want to do is they want to spend their time working on the things that they love to do and the things that they are so good at and what brought them to their business. So let's assume that somebody says, what I really want to do is business development, and I don't want to be bothered by all of the other 28 elements of the business hierarchy of needs. We can build a strategy around that as well so that we make sure that the right people are in place to handle human resources, finance, marketing, sales, product development, perhaps manufacturing and distribution. So you can see the two differences. We have two owners who want to change their involvement in the business or even get out. And we build business strategies around that most important goal.
Okay, so the goal could be I want an exit. The goal could be I want to get my children to take over. The goal could be, I'm just going to close the damn thing. The goal could be all kinds of different things. But what you're saying is that I really need to get clear what my number one priority is. But it could be something so simple as saying that I want a 10x, or, I want to really focus on growth, or I want to go into vertical expansion. So that's really something that the business owner kind of has to know what they want, and then you help them to flush this out and then build a strategy behind it. Am I understanding this correctly?
Yes, you are, Beata. But here's the key difference. Let's assume that I want to double the size of my business in 5 years. Well, as business people, we can think of a lot of different ways to do that. It could be an acquisition. It could be organic growth. So you can see that if acquisition is part of my strategy, I've got a whole series of things I need to do to make that successful. If it's going to be all organic growth, now my strategies are around new products, new channels of distribution. But here's the next piece of that. If I want to double the size of my company, once I achieve that, my company is going to look different. I'm probably going to need a different organization structure. I'm probably going to need a new technology backbone. I'm probably going to need a whole new approach to sales and marketing because now I'm twice the size. And so one of the important things about the business hierarchy of needs is level one, which is establishing that foundation, which includes my most important goal in business strategies, to move to level two, which is knowledge and change management, which is the organization. What do I need to do in the organization in order to make sure that I can get from, I'm going to pick a number, 5 million to 10 million and successfully operate the business at $10 million? So when we talk about the elements of the business hierarchy of needs, we're not introducing things you've never done before because every business has to do all 29 elements. They do all 29 elements. What we're suggesting is that everything you do in the business and every one of those elements is pointed toward the most important goal.
Yeah, I really like that. So let's talk a little bit more about the hierarchy right after this message. Thank you so much for listening to or watching the show. This is Beate Chalette. I am asking you to please help us spread the word of the show, and here's how you can do this. Go ahead and share this episode with one other person that needs to hear what we were talking about today. Of course, a 5-star review and a subscription is always appreciated, and that's what's helped us to become a top 10% globally ranked show by Listen Notes. Here is how we can help you. There is opportunity in every market, and especially in this market, and we want to help you to figure out what that is. As our thank you for you being here, we would like to gift you with a complimentary uncovery session with one of our business growth advisors. All you have to do is go to uncoverysession.com, and one of our advisors will take you through our process to help you figure out how you can grow your business right now. And now, back to the show. Beate Chalette here with Jim, and we are talking about the hierarchy in a business. So you talk a lot about, and that's what your book's about, the 29 steps of hierarchy. And so what would you say to somebody who goes like, man, 29 steps, seriously? Can we do this a little bit easier?
So, Beate, I actually want to reframe it a little bit because it's not 29 steps.
Go ahead, tell them, because the reason I'm asking you this, a little provocatively, let me just give a little bit of background, because what we are up against, in my world a lot is that there's a lot of internet marketers. And internet marketers are telling you that in only 3 simple steps that take only you paying them a lot of money, no work, just an eeny, tiny little bit of time. You kind of don't really have to change anything. I mean, you're going to have to change a little bit, but you don't really have to change that much. And then boom, magically, all the things you've ever dreamed about are happening until the next affiliate offer comes in and says, yeah, well, we failed to tell you that you need to have this affiliate product that we also making money on. And then they go around in circle and circle and circle. So when somebody like you comes and says 29, I know that you're for real, because I know what it takes, because it's what we teach, and we don't use internet marketing language, 3 easy steps to whatever, because I don't think that's true. But I want you to address when somebody says 29 sounds like a lot, Jim. Why is it so much? Is it complicated? Is it difficult? Tell our listeners, what is it that they need to focus on so they don't get stuck with a number 29?
I love that question. People who read the original manuscript of the book, those that are used to finding out how to be successful with 242 characters, bytes, right?
Yes, exactly.
Because we've all gotten used to that. I mean, everyone tells you, if you're going to write a blog article, make it a 2-minute read. Well, life isn't a 2-minute read, and business isn't a 2-minute read. So here's what I say to people, and I actually address it in the book early on, this exact conversation. And the conversation is, there are a couple of steps that get the ball rolling. And the most important goal is the starter for that. So let's say I have 10 people in my organization, and my My focus and my most important goal is to double the size of the business. And everybody knows that. And they know that you as the leader are going to ask them how they're going to help you move to the most important, accomplish the most important goal. It starts to become a mindset. It starts to sit in the back of their mind. And they start asking the question, is what I am doing or what I want to change going to move us to the most important goal? Easy peasy, as you said earlier in our conversation. Now, as I start to think through this, I have to think about, I'm going to double the size of the company. How am I going to hire people? Or how should I hire people? What are the leadership traits I want in the leaders inside my organization? What's my compensation strategy around it? What training and skills do my people need in order to accomplish the most important goal? Let's say we're going to go to new channels of distribution and develop new products. Perhaps I don't have those people in the organization, and I need to figure out what I need in the organization. So we're not talking about 29 steps, step 1, 2, 3 through 29. What we're talking about is taking all of the things you do in your business on a daily basis and just testing everything you do against that most important goal. So don't think about 29 elements. Think about a most important goal and get everyone in your organization pointed in that direction. And a lot of things will happen on their own.
Yeah, I like this explanation, Jim. That almost makes me like go like, so it's like a checklist against something.
Yes.
So it would say, we just brought on a salesperson. And so because, Q1, we set a quarterly strategy. So every quarter we have one focus. So this quarter it is to get our sales process fine-tuned, flushed out, figured out, the products lined up, the sales pages, so that, we set this person up for success and subsequently ourselves. So you are absolutely correct, because now every question that we have is this helping or hurting us? Somebody
Yes.
comes with a collaboration idea. Well, does it fit this quarter? No. So it's postponed because that's not our main goal right now, in your words. Then somebody comes and says, well, I'm thinking about collaboration on an affiliate thing. Well, is that related to sales? Yes. Is this something that we can do easily? And then we have these criteria. You're absolutely right that I have to measure it against. Say, is this helping sales? Yes. But is it taking my eyes off the ball of the larger goal to fix the sales process? Then I have to say, it will take my eyes off the ball. Okay, so then it would fail the litmus test. So now, in your words, it would have fallen out. So I think that for everyone listening, think about it from this perspective, that if you are getting clear in the idea of business architecture, of saying it's like, every quarter I have a strategy, because, you can pick any strategy you want, right? But if it is that strategy, what I'm hearing you say, Jim, is get your act together, make that be the hero, let that be that focus, and be disciplined to really stick with that goal. So are we going to stick with the goal until we have achieved the goal? Or am I allowed to deviate?
So I'm not naive enough, even in the consulting work that I do, to suggest to any client or any listener that you never deviate from your most important goal. You set the most important goal, and there are going to be times where business conditions are going to force you to reevaluate it. So let's talk about the pandemic. I'm moving along, business is growing really well, and all of a sudden an external force hits me right between the eyes. My most important goal is no longer growth. My most important goal is now saving my company because we've shut down. But notice what's happened here. My most important goal was growth. I'm moving along in that path. I'm being successful. An external force comes along, perhaps it's a government regulation, perhaps it's a tariff, that no longer makes the most important goal achievable. I now have to step back and reassess. Because if you sit and think about it, business architecture and business strategy are living mechanisms or living, thriving things. They need to be watered. They need to be fertilized. They need to be pruned. And so while I strongly suggest to organizations that they have a most important goal that's longer term, I won't suggest that it can't ever be changed.
And I think that was really important to just mention is that the business has a pulse. So it's a living, breathing thing. So, just like you think you said you wanted to eat steak tonight, and then you go like, nah, I really am in the appetite for fish. So you can change and adjust based on market fluctuation, necessities, and insights. So it is important to have a goal. You can change the goal, but you still need to have a main goal. So tell us, Jim, for somebody who has now said, well, fine, I'm going to look at those 29 things. Where can they find out more about that?
So inside the Strategy Realized, the Business Hierarchy of Needs, which is available on Amazon.
Which is a book. Yes. And we will have that link in the show notes.
Okay. There is at strategyrealized.com, there's a resources tab. And inside that resources tab, you can actually download a workbook that has each one of the elements in it and asks you to think about 2 or 3 or 4 things for each element and to answer those questions. And that gives everyone an opportunity to look at the business hierarchy of needs in its entirety and to be able to develop their own unique business hierarchy of needs. And it's the process that we go through in every strategic planning project we do. We walk through okay, what's your most important goal? Okay, what are the strategies that support that? All right, cool. Got these strategies. What kind of organization do I need to do that? What kind of technology backbone do I need to do that? What are the skill levels of the people inside my organization to do that? Now, it's interesting because a lot of times in creating strategy and implementing it, it's done. The creation is done at the C-suite. And all of a sudden they've got this beautiful strategy in place, but no one else in the organization has been involved in the how, in developing it. And so I want to leave your listeners with this thought, Beata. We all want to be led. We want, and whether you're a CEO or you're on the shop floor, we all want to be led. We want to know from what to what by when. And if you're an insightful leader and you make everyone in your organization part of the how, you now don't have responsibility on your shoulders for the 29 elements. You've now exuded that down throughout the organization. And we walk you through the process for making that happen. Because if you're a leader and you think that you're singularly responsible for the most important goal, you've got to overcome that first.
Yes, I think this is a great way to close out the show. I believe, what I have heard you say today, Jim, is let the main thing be the main thing, but it's not the main thing. It's like what you focus on, but have a main goal for your business, objective, direction. Make sure that you keep addressing, massaging it, and then bring people in so that they can understand what their part in it is and have ownership from the very moment you start to create this, because then people go and say, oh, I know what's expected of me. Or they may raise their hand shockingly and say, let me take care of this part, which is what we want as business owners, is we want our team to say, I got this, step aside, let me do my work. Don't meddle with me. You be the boss, the visionary. Let me figure out how this execution work. So, Jim, I thank you so much for being on the show. This was a very insightful episode, and we wish you nothing but luck with bringing this message out and helping a lot more people to set the goal and stick with it.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for being part of sharing the message.
Thank you so much. And there you have it, Beehive. Until we see each other next time, this is Beata Gillette, and goodbye. Thank you for listening to or watching this episode. We are so grateful that you are here. That's what is our passion. That's what lights us up. We are here to share strategies because that's what we're super excited about. Let us help you find the right strategy in this market, the strategy, the opportunity that will help you to grow your authority and scale your impact. simply go to uncoveriesession.com and get your session on the books with one of our business growth advisors so that you can get very clear what your very next step should be to grow your business. Please subscribe to the show now so that you'll never miss another episode. Episodes are dropping every Monday. Again, this is Beate Schlett, the Growth Architect, and I thank you so much for being here, and goodbye.